We are live with the community. This is the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform Development bi-weekly call. Today is December 21st, our last call of the year for this call. Wow, where did it go? We have had an amazing year. We're super excited for 2024, but it's not over yet. So let's get into what we're going to talk about today. We're going to have a bunch of updates, everybody. Latest updates on the community, .NET Libraries, PowerShell, Yo Teams, got a big one there. Microsoft Teams Toolkit, Graph Toolkit, and more. And then we got our latest script samples, team samples, Power Platform samples. We're going to have our picture time. And then we're going to have a little bit of a difference today. We know everybody's kind of relaxing, so we're just going to do some coffee, tea, and conversation. We're going to have an open Q&A opportunity. We're using Power Pages. If you want to ask some questions, we can use the chat. But it's going to be an easier way with the Power Pages tool to keep track of everything. So we know everybody's having fun with the chat and the memes and enjoying themselves. And we encourage that. So let's first talk about some resources that are available to you. We've got a plethora of community videos that are out there for you to learn and enjoy, covering a wide spectrum of the technology that we use and love every single day. You can subscribe to those YouTube accounts and be alerted as soon as a new video drops. That's the best way. We've also got our LinkedIn group for discussions, so you can check that out at aka.ms/community/li. And we've got open source tooling, things like PNP.js, CLI for Microsoft 365, a number of tools that you can use to engage with the technology. And I mentioned samples. We got community samples made by all of you, team samples, SPFX samples, Power Platform, and list formatting. And they are all free, 100%. Absolutely free for you to use, build from, learn from, all the above. And you only got to remember one URL to keep track of it all. aka.ms/community/home will give you access to all of these things. Now, you're here because you like calls, right? Yeah, we like them too. So we've got plenty for you. There's a Microsoft 365 and Power Platform weekly call. This is only Microsoft speakers, everybody. So it's coming directly from the horse's mouth. And you can absolutely get access to all the latest information by attending that one. It's program managers, product managers, but it is on a break. It's on a break until the 9th of January. So Bess and I will likely be there every Tuesday just to show up, remind everybody. And if you want to chat, that's okay too. We'll be ready for you. The Power Platform call is a monthly call. That was just yesterday. Great call. Check the video out. We'll be releasing here in a few minutes. And then, of course, we've got our Office add-ins and our bi-weekly Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community and Viva Connections and SharePoint Framework sibling calls. Those are every single Thursday. No breaks whatsoever. We are here forever and ever and ever for you. So be on the lookout for those. You can absolutely get the recurrent invites from aka.ms/community/calls. So please don't hesitate to get those invites added to your calendar so you can be here every single week with us. And if you're watching this and you're like, hey, I want to present some cool stuff. I got some cool stuff. We welcome you to show that cool stuff. Everyone is welcome. This is an opportunity for you to demo the amazing stuff that you're doing with technology. Don't overthink it. It absolutely can be a tip, a trick, a technique, a new favorite feature, something you found. And if you think, oh man, everybody already must know this. It's so basic. I guarantee you, there are people that don't know it. So get on the call, share it, and if you've never presented before, we will buddy you up with a more established and prepared presenter that has done it, and you can present together. It's awesome. It's a great way to get to know others in the community as well. So take advantage. Just let us know in the notes. That next Tuesday call that we were talking about, again, yeah, just a reminder, it is on a break, but we will be there. If you want to chat, we'll be there. Of course, again, Thursday calls do not end. They are not on a break. So make sure you're here every Thursday. We'll take care of you. Also, as you're getting involved in the community, we have a program called Sharing is Caring that is here to provide you hands-on guidance. What does that mean? It means that we set up live calls to walk you through how to do things like, I don't know, submit to GitHub. What is a GitHub? What's a pull request? We're going to walk you through all those things together. And we're also setting up office hours to make it a little more scalable. We're getting videos set up. So we're looking to expand this up in 2024 to make it more accessible to everyone in the community and scalable to enjoy. So keep an eye out at ak.ms/sharingiscaring, and we will ensure that you get all those great updates. And for those that are contributing, we love it and we want to recognize it. So our community recognition program is still alive, well, and heading into 2024. But you got a few days left to get those 2023 badges, things like Slice of Samples or the Season of Getting. These are all available for you to access. All of them are available for 2023, but only until December 31st at 11:59 p.m. local time. Ha! Yeah, because we cover the entire spectrum of time everywhere. But be ready for 2024. It is not going anywhere. We absolutely are bringing it back. It is a wonderful initiative. We are so glad everyone enjoys it, and rest assured it is here for the long term. All right, everybody, let's get into some project-specific updates, and we're going to kick it off with Bert.
Thank you, David. So we have some good news. We have a couple of new releases. So it took a while, but 1.11 is out for Chorus Decay. This is mainly like a maintenance release, but there's like a ton of smaller improvements, smaller fixes. So we're getting fairly feature complete. So if folks still have other things to add, use the issue list, create a PR. We definitely want to welcome contributions or new contributors to our .NET world. But yeah, that's out. And aligned with the Chorus Decay, we also do the PNP framework. So if you move to the next slide, David. All right, PNP framework as well, 1.14, new release. Again, mainly bug fixes. No major new things, but all kind of incremental improvements. These libraries have been around for like so many years now. It's like there is no really major things to add anymore. But they're going forward, and the usage is just skyrocketing as well. So then we can move to this one. Yay! So talked about the new releases. So I think .NET 8 is definitely one of the key things there. If you want to use the latest and greatest .NET, you can now do it with .NET 8, and we support that. And on the Chorus Decay side, there's one new change from Kefir Shen, which enables you, when you create a site collection, to already define the time zone setting for that site collection. So if your attendance is configured to be Norwegian, for example, you can create your site directly in English, which is like a nice thing to have. I think that sums it up for the .NET side of the house. Let's move to PowerShell, which, by the way, is also .NET, but different thing. Gautam, take it away.
Thanks, Bert. Thanks, David. Following closely on the heels of PNP Core and PNP Framework, we also released v2.3.0 of the PNP PowerShell as well. So yeah, it releases lots of new features and bug fixes as well, so do go crazy and check it out. Besides that, we have also been making some changes in the latest nightly builds as well. So as you must have known, SharePoint Embed released a couple of weeks back, and one of the commands that we added related to that is the remove PNP container command, right? So that's something that we added, and we also improved the set PNP tenant command to add this is data access in card designer enabled. Quite a mouthful parameter name, but yeah, that's something that allows you to configure Viva connections adaptive cards to connect to backend services. So that's something that we added. And would absolutely love to hear from you. So do reach us out on the discussion forum as well as on the GitHub issue list. That's pretty much from my end. Over to you, David.
Awesome. Thank you, Gautam. Let's get into Yo Teams with Tommy and Victor today.
Yes, so I'm super happy to wish you all a happy Christmas, New Year, and at the same time we take the opportunity to retire Yo Teams. After 7, soon 8 years of actually creating it for SharePoint Saturday in Munich, we have decided to retire it. We haven't had that much updates as of lately. It's fairly stable, but now it's the time, and we also have the Teams toolkit as a very, very great successor to Yo Teams going forward. So how does that impact all of you? Nothing. If you built an app, it will work just as is and continue to work as is. And that's essentially the beauty of Yo Teams. It's completely, once you generated your program or application, it's completely disconnected from the generator. But we will not make any major updates to Yo Teams going forward. However, it's on GitHub, it's open source. If you really, really like it, please go ahead, fork it for your own purpose and repurpose it for your needs. So what we'll do next is ensure that we have a good set of published versions out there that will remain indefinitely on the interwebs going forward. And thanks to everyone who contributed to the project over the years, and everyone, specifically those who had used it to build applications, and hopefully we moved or advanced the Microsoft Teams development community. And with that, I'll hand over to the Teams toolkit.
Is that Tommy?
No.
Okay, cool.
But
Oh.
one more thing still on this slide. Victor, your name is missing as the first entry because you created the slide. So big thank you, of course, to you, because if I remember it correctly, you once told me the story that way that you flew home from the States and created the thing during the flight.
Exactly. I needed to create Teams applications. So I made it on the flight over the pond. Yeah.
So luckily you had a long haul and not a short flight because the tool was really great. Thank you very much.
Woo! All right. Yep. Thank you all who have contributed. Okay, let's get into, as it flies away, let's get into Teams Toolkit. John is not here, so just a brief update. 5.4 is available. I think it just came out on Monday, so it's got things like AI Assistant bot app template using Teams AI library. You can also preview and edit adaptive cards effortlessly using the adaptive card previewer, create Copilot plugins, and lots of other stuff. Definitely check it out at aka.ms/TTK. He's also got a chat opportunity that you can do with John, so take advantage of that. Great guy. Loves to get involved. All right, let's move over to MGT and Mr. Sebastian Levert.
Hey, happy holiday, everybody. We're excited for the future of the Graph Toolkit as we're coming into the new year. We're having scheduled an early 2024 MGT v4 that's going to get released. So we're really looking forward to that. You can follow our progress on GitHub right now. It's kind of amazing all the work that the engineers have been doing on that. We're bringing new lit capabilities. We're bringing new tree shaking support for React. We're bringing new asynchronous lit capabilities. We're bringing new Electron stuff. So a lot of things are coming to the Graph Toolkit v4. And if you want to try it out, npm install at Microsoft/mgt@next, and you'll be able to start experiencing it today because it's already available. It's open source, so you can already use it today. So in 2024, I'm hoping in the first or the second call of the year, I'll be able to announce that it's now ready for showtime. See you on the new year. Back to you, David.
Awesome. Thank you, Seb. Exciting stuff for 2024. Let's get into script samples with Paul Bullock.
Hey, everybody. Thank you, David. So script samples is a location where you can share PowerShell scripts with the community. So we've had 3 awesome new contributions. So I was always super happy to see those PRs come through and with some absolutely fantastic ideas. So we've got some new scenarios around PNP PowerShell. So getting all the hub sites and main navigation site nodes by Velarus and Arbutus. And we've got bulk removal retention labels from a library, or SharePoint document library, by Liam Armstrong. And then we've got a new scenario using Power Apps PowerShell, because we do support multiple libraries, for exporting all those Power App details and its role assignments from a tenant to a CSV format, again by Velarus and Arbutus. So that's absolutely amazing contributions. I'm always super happy to see those come through, and there's always always something that even I go to that site and use that for the things to get started. So it's a great way of getting started quickly, see what's there and see how you can leverage it and so forth. So but if you want to contribute, feel free to reach out over Twitter, for example. My handle's there. My handle's pretty much the same on most platforms anyway. So whether it's Twitter or LinkedIn, if you need any support with there. Hopefully there's some good documentation to get started. And of course, remember to opt in. There is a badge for you. So we've got 1, 2, 3 star level badges for those regular contributors can also get recognized as well. So thank you very much for all those that have contributed. And I hope you have a happy holiday from me. And back to you, David.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul. And I was just tallying up some badges for script samples. There are so many out there that are just so close to that 2 and 3 stars. So if you're close and you got some time during the holidays or your vacation, then definitely take advantage. You get that submitted and Paul will hook you up and we'll get those badges. All right. Microsoft Teams samples. Bob is out on vacation right now, so just wanted to briefly cover extending Copilot in Microsoft 365. So that's a great opportunity. 20 new samples. Absolutely reach out to Bob if you're looking to submit, and there's a lot of opportunity to get some samples created for Microsoft Teams. Additionally, we've got Power Platform samples as well. And with Copilot ever popular right now, right? We think we've all heard about a little something about Copilot. Well, we got some prompts. Sometimes you need a little help on how to get started. So definitely check out the Power Platform prompts repo. It is absolutely imperative and valuable for you. There's been a ton of contributions lately, so we really appreciate that. And we're getting a new badge set up for this in 2024. So working with April Dunham on that. It's going to be some fun stuff. Be on the lookout for that. So what does that leave for us? It leaves picture time. So get those fantastic faces showing up in your camera. All right, Vesta's already taken over.
Working.
And yay!
It's working. It's working. It's been a non-working every now and then. So, but this is really good. We're getting a good picture and a lot of ugly sweaters in the. Not that we're calling anybody's sweater ugly, right? So.
It's a trap. It's a trap.
Yes, exactly. A few more seats in the room. We have 50 seats in the room. Let's see how many. There's David in the front row as well. Few more. Bill in the middle. A lot of familiar faces. Paul is showing an example in the middle. Paul, you can do that. Excellent, excellent, and that's really good. I think we are hitting the limits, so let me put the recording on, and we'll grab a GIF animation out of that. So let's do some hand waving, everybody. Happy Christmas or holidays, whatever you're celebrating, and awesome 2024. Excellent. Good to see you in a call. Excellent. Really, really cool. And that's good. That's a good thing, Kevin. You can move now. It's all good. Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Let's get back on the normal show. Well, not actually normal show.
Yeah,
right, David?
it's a little, yeah, exactly. We have a special edition, a very special edition of the PNP Community Call, everybody. We are going to have open conversation. So let me actually unlock your mics. We're going to try to keep this orderly. So what we have done is we've set up a Q&A. Now, of course, we can have just open conversation and chat, but if you have any questions, we wanted to try and keep it orderly because we know the chat just kind of flies by in ludicrous speed fashion. So if you go load that URL that you see on the screen, and I'll put it here in the chat as well, we have a Power Pages collection. I'll share how that looks. You can ask, not that one. There we go. You can ask questions, just ask them, and then we will get them moderated and added. Just allows us to keep track, and that way if everybody has the same question, we can just upvote those questions as well. But not required. Absolutely okay to just have some conversation and enjoy the time we've got. So, Todd, why don't you kick us off with a joke? You're muted, though. I think that was the joke. He's still muted. Now I think he's becoming a mime. Nope, he's going to mime it. Yeah.
I've got the worst Christmas cracker joke ever.
Oh, there's Todd. Sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Paul.
Yes. Let's.
I was going to say,
we'll get to the questions. We can see some of that's coming in, which is good.
why is it bad to eat a clock? Because it's too time consuming. I'm waiting for David's sound effects to trigger off.
Yeah,
with
I know. Something's not working with Elgato today, so I'm gonna have to troubleshoot that. I tried sound effects earlier and they weren't coming through. I don't think, at least, right? Are you hearing?
Nope.
Did you hear a horse?
Nope. You just need a little tumbleweed sound, don't you?
Yeah.
Or crickets. Todd, you had a joke still. We can see some questions coming in also, but.
I was just going to say, I wish I had anything would be good after that. But a thing that happened, so, drinking coffee and all that. I've got a couple of young kids, and so they've seen me make coffee every morning. And my 13-year-old's like, well, what does that taste like? And so I let her taste it, and she's like, it tastes like dirt. And I'm, well, it was ground this morning, so that makes sense. That's so. I wouldn't have tried that, except Paul set the bar so low.
You're doing us a solid, Todd.
Exactly. Love you, Paul. Love you.
Good.
So that's actually,
this is good.
Yeah, one of these is good because we mention it a lot, right? I think just by muscle memory, but it's a good question because we have new ones in the community all the time. What does PNP in the context of this meeting stand for?
Yes, this is a well-known question, which and there's a reason why we're trying to get away from using the PMP within the terminology. But that means patterns and practices. It's how would I put it? It's a kind of a semi leftover from the previous naming, because we Microsoft were really good on renaming stuff. We started our community initiative back in 2004. Well, 13 first and then 14 going public. So almost next year is going to be 10 years anniversary on some of the stuff what we're doing here. But we started by publicly going and calling it as a Microsoft 365 patterns and practices. Power Platform didn't exist at the time. There was no Power Apps or Power Automate or anything like that. So it was Microsoft 365 developer patterns and practices. And that's where the PMP is coming from. So it's been technically it's leftovers from there. Nowadays, we do call out the community to be Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community without the PMP. The PMP is referencing the older name, having that connection. Yes,
in a community.
Microsoft. Oh, it's a good point, actually. Thank you,
ago.
Kevin. Office 365 developer patterns and practices. Excellent. Office 365, not Microsoft 365. You're absolutely correct on that. Not plug and play like Chris is saying over there.
Yeah,
Paula. So.
365 pushes it way back.
We started publicly.
Ago.
Yeah, this is historical. We'll write I need to write a story on this one obviously next year when 10 years is done. That's on the autumn. I think it was August 2014 whenever we went live in GitHub. And in March 2014, we went live in SharePoint conference, actually, with the name of Office AMS, Office App Model Samples. And then we started doing monthly community calls, and then that's grown to be bi-weekly community calls, and then weekly community calls, and now we have a lot of other stuff. So anyway, that's a good suggestion from Chris in the chat. 365 NPPDC. So so that's where the PMP PowerShell is, by the way, coming from as well. So patterns and practices PowerShell. So anyway, so I guess that's the quick clarification on that one.
All right. Here's another decent one that you can deflect if you want, Vesa. What will the new name of SPFX be?
Now, technically, Microsoft Teams and SharePoint and OneDrive is owned by Jeff Teper. Jeff Teper is the president of Microsoft. He's been in a company for quite a few years, and he's actually the original creator of SharePoint, and we call him the father of SharePoint. Many of you might know him with that name. If you come from the Dynamics or the Power Platform side, you might not know that connection. But SPFX is SharePoint framework, and Jeff likes SharePoint, and that's why we released SharePoint Embedded and SharePoint Premium. And yes, SharePoint Premium and Embedded are Microsoft 365 wide services, even though it's powered by SharePoint. In the same way, there is no plans to rename SPFX because it is still powered by SharePoint behind the scenes, even though you can do Microsoft Teams or Microsoft 365 extensibility with it. So no name changes in plans for SPFX. There was a moment of a time when that was evaluated, and the conclusion was that it might be more confusing to introduce the new name than actually keeping the existing name. That's why the name change never happened. Cool.
And it's not just Jeff that likes SharePoint.
There we go. Thank you. Thanks, Bill. SharePoint. So I know that we're recording this, but I do know, related on some of the namings and everything else, I'm not going to go too much details. There was actually an internal study, marketing study on how strong the SharePoint brand is. And the conclusion is that it's actually incredibly strong. So SharePoint is well-known in good and bad. Globally, and using that within the brand name makes sense rather than trying to introduce something which is completely new. That kind of the SharePoint brand is going to be more visible in the future in the Microsoft 365 all up. I can see Elliot, by the way, hand up. We can take a question on the chat.
Nice one, cheers. I'm a huge fan of SharePoint as well. I think it's a good proving tool. Is a good first step as well. If you want to do something that's database-ish, then just stop using Excel and pop up a list, and who knows, it might actually only need that level of performance. It might only need a SharePoint list to do what you need to do. Even even a help desk at a small company does not need everything packed behind it to make it work. A few lists, couple of forms, you're good. But yeah, I get it. I totally agree as well. Plus, you know, you can do proof of concept using it as well in that kind of respect. I was actually going to ask a slightly awkward question about.
That's why we're here. So
yeah. Sorry about.
And it's good that we're getting this recorded. This is already a good start.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's kind of twofold, and the second bit is kind of a bit of a shame. But with Power Automate, I've noticed that a lot of features. I mean, I understand why you'll often push some features into the more premium connectors. I get that you are still a company that needs to make money, but equally there is some stuff like moving access to the Graph API away from literally everyone and then not providing the equivalent access in the other connectors, which was the reason I was given in the community. I'm giving you an example of this, but this kind of happens, I think, throughout the ecosystem. And the groups, I think it was the groups HTTP connector was restricted in the Graph API calls it could make. And the reason being that, oh no, don't worry, all the relevant connectors will get their own HTTP connector and they'll be able to call the relevant Graph endpoints. Obviously didn't happen. And people have had to resort to paid subscriptions to do HTTP calls, set up all of that nonsense as well. I just wondered, is that ever going to come back? The access to the full Graph API for someone who wants to utilize it in a way that's functional, will not break because, you know, it's a connector. It's a, you know, if we've got the call and we've got the permissions to make the call, more importantly, then we can make the call using the Graph, using the groups connector. And just the bad side of this, not that that's all very good, was that there's no real place to really raise that up the tree in public. You know, I can raise a ticket in my tenancy, and that's great. And and again, I don't mean to sound tinfoil hat. I've grown the beard, especially for this conversation. But like, I can be shushed away in my little private ticket. But like, people kind of should be a bit annoyed about this. Like, there's been people in the forum said this has broken, you know, company level flows and things like that. Obviously, they can switch to Logic Apps, but again, the cost. It's hard, and we're seeing similar things happen with the new designer as well. Again, I'm not saying this to complain. I just kind of want to know when we're going to progress and get these things back, or if we're not, and we're going to have to pay, and we just have to lump it.
Yeah, I understand the question really well, and the licensing and the cost and everything else is always challenging. And I can imagine that any other person in the from Microsoft in this call is now don't want to even answer this question, because one of the challenges, I'll explain the dynamics here. So the challenge is that the people who are building things like or doing community engagement, we don't make, or feature crews, so building capabilities, we don't make decisions on will it be premium or will it be free, or where it will be done. That is a decision which is being done by the business operations, and then unfortunately related on the cost structure and GOCs, as in operations and all of that stuff. It might be that some of the connectors and functionalities have moved from the free to the premium. And what those are and what are those decisions, it's kind of one of those things which is outside of our hands even, because it comes top down from people who have a much higher payroll. and then we just need to adapt on basically those changes. And that is it's problematic. But I would so as a rule of thumb, what I would always encourage people to do is whenever we see something like this, and if we can find a centralized location where people are already complaining, or let's put it there, where people are providing constructive feedback, let's try to centralize all of the feedback in one of those comments or posts or whatever, so we can understand the scale. For example, in some of the issue lists, what we have for some of the areas within Microsoft 365 for Power Platform, people go to the issue list or to the forums and say, yeah, somebody's already complaining, so I'm not going to actually answer that. I'm not going to amplify the message. And that's actually wrong. You should, because the Microsoft and the decisions work in a way that we always evaluate the scale of the impact. And so basically, if we can see that people are complaining in forums and there's a 1 person or 2 person or 3 persons saying, well, this is too bad, Microsoft, blah, 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 we don't like this change. It's like, okay, 3 persons, that's okay. So it's how would I put this in somebody's going to quote me this in the wrong way, but it's fine. It's basically the yelling metric, and that happens. This is not a Microsoft level, specific plan or anything. This is a term which I'm actually using. So we make a change, and then we see how many people are yelling, and that's not a Microsoft unique thing. That happens throughout the industry as well. And that basically my recommendation is always let's try to find a location where people are providing the feedback, and then amplify that. Basically, go to the Twitter, go to the LinkedIn, go to the social media, and ask other people to, hey, if you see this as an issue for you, let's all get the feedback in this one location. Because then if we can collect 100 people providing feedback, even though you don't have a premium support or Microsoft connections, that will have an impact. It will basically then be routed to the PM who made the decision or the business decision makers inside of Microsoft, and basically saying, see, 300 people are yelling. This is not good. This is bad PR. Let's fix it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that was the main thing, though. There really wasn't a place to make that.
Yep.
That thing. They removed a subforum that was literally I found a bug.
Yep.
It doesn't exist. There's no way to actually list openly, to talk about problems with the actual system.
But we can always open a conversation with I found a bug or a bug, and then the whatever, or not happy, and then the feedback. So trying to be thoughtful on the messaging and try to also collect the scale. So, and if anybody of the people who are listening or watching or you're seeing an issue, you go to the issue list, you go to the forum, you can see somebody else already reported that. Go and add a comment, go and add a thumbs up, go something which is indicating I saw it as well. It's incredibly important that they get the scale of the issue. So if it's in my case, if it's a one Finnish random person yelling for Microsoft that this is wrong, no impact. We need to get more voices behind of the joint message. And I understand, Elliot, the challenge of having that one centralized location. We used to have what was it? Wow, now my brain is hitting blanks. The user voice. But then all of the individual product groups went to their own way of organizing their feedback after that. And that was a bad decision. But that came to be as a business decision with user voice. And I think there was something wrong with that setup. And then we needed to move forward from there.
Wait, hey, Vesa, I just want to back up on something real quick. Did you say a Finnish person that's yelling? Does that even exist?
Oh, mate, you have not seen Finnish people drink, have you? The Finnish people drink like the English, and harder. And there's a picture of Kimi Räikkönen drinking on a boat.
That's true.
He falls on his head. This is the world champion at the time of Formula One. He falls on his head off of a balcony, and then gets up and keeps on drinking and keeps on going. Finnish drinkers can beat even New Yorkers. I swear.
All right, so we do have a few more questions just to be fair to everybody else that's getting in there. There is actually one on list formatting. So for those that are watching on demand, I'm going to read it because you obviously won't see it. In the past, I have had trouble with variable length of multi-line column in a custom JSON list view. Looking for a good list formatting sample that can handle a variable sized multi-line text column in a card view. Ideal would be to handle the full size of the multi-line column and not cut it off a set number of lines. Other acceptable solutions would be a row formatter approach or a set number of lines with scrolling. Thanks for suggestions. We just happen to have the list whisperer with us here on the call. Chris, are you out there? Oh, Chris.
I think I just saw him drop. Just kidding.
Yo,
Just kidding.
what?
I literally asked him on
I heard
the
list
side.
format. I'm
Sorry,
out of
hitting
here.
to a tunnel.
Yeah.
Woo, bye. Merry Christmas. Yeah, let's see if we can tackle this problem real quick. Share my screen. We can see the problem in action. Woo! All right. Everybody see that? Wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So I think what we're talking about here is I got a multi-line that's got extra junk in it that's too long, right? By default, you get this little button that's supposed to make it so you can see there's more. And the issue, right, is when you go to the gallery view, it just does this. And you're like, yeah, thanks, Microsoft. I really just wanted 2 lines with no indication that there was more, right? That is super frustrating. So you go to format the view and you go to the card designer, right, just so you can get it to generate the JSON for it. You go to advanced mode. All right, now I've got this stuff. If I just scroll way down to where my column is, again, I can hit Control F and I can look for, I think, some cool synergy. Yep. If I come down here, this is what's causing the problem right here. So this web clamp, line clamp, and this height right here. So what we can do is we can take this guy out here and we can just say instead, overflow Y, right? We're going to say is like auto. All right, and then we can change our height to something else, right? We can double it, maybe say 80 pixels. We can preview that, right? We can start to see a little more, you notice I can't actually scroll here. And if I click that, it's going to be a problem, right? So there's another thing I have to do. And that's, well, first I have to up the height of the overall thing, right? So let's make that 233, right? Let's add another 40 to that, right? So we get the whole card. And then the thing that's preventing from scrolling here, right, is this guy here, this very first child, is this hovering div that goes over everything that makes it so you can't actually interact with the card. Delete that, preview that, and now you can scroll. Okay? So it's not perfect, but that should get you a lot further. Does that help? Hopefully. That's it. Not hopefully. Let's got more questions on it.
All right. I see hearts and claps, so I'm going to guess that it is good to go. Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
Woo. There's another good question here that's getting some upvotes. How do you deal with a big company that refuses to use SPFX? They either do Power Apps or full custom dev. Who do you start with? So I will kick this off. I think that, Hugo's not here, I believe, but he's always had a really good suggestion that we've talked about. When you're trying to influence people, I think the proof is in the pudding, right? So like if you can find someone who's got a need that you can fulfill with SPFX, they're a lot more willing to listen when you're bringing a solution that's already somewhat built, quasi-built, pre-built. They want to know how you were able to achieve it, and you're talking their language, so they're willing to have a little bit more of a conversation. But I know we've got a ton of SPFX brilliant minds on here, starting with Vesa, and we can open it up from there.
Yeah, I'm gonna just share the screen. It's easier to see all of the pending questions which are coming in from the Q&A. Of course, depending on a use case and depending on a customer, Power Platform, Power Apps, absolutely a valid option. SharePoint Framework, custom development, absolutely valid options as well. And the question is always on what skills, what are the objectives, what are we trying to do? And also it would be interesting to know why would SPFX not be suitable. That is 100% supported by Microsoft. And that's where we are recommending all of the customers moving into from SharePoint add-in model as an example. And the cool thing about SPFX is also the full backward compatibility. So if you build anything in SharePoint 2017, as in 6 years ago, it still works in SharePoint Online. So we actually provide this enterprise level backward compatibility for SharePoint Framework. You build something back in SharePoint Framework version 1 in 2017. It still works in SharePoint Online without recompiling, without doing anything. And that's per technical magic, what happens behind the scenes. Not going to go too much detail on how that's happening. Now, in many cases, that would be that's something which Power Platform cannot currently at least do. So six years backward compatibility, that's not something what they can currently do. And custom development is always more expensive. But again, it comes back on objectives and the skills and the reasoning. Why would they be saying that SPFX is not a valid option? Feels like a oversight, to be honest, because again, with SPFX, you get automatic hosting, automatic single sign-on, all of these advantages, and massive community, which is building samples and code which we can reuse. So more on it depends. I'm an ex-consultant, so recovering consultant, so it always depends on finding the right answer. But industry standard tooling as well, that's the beauty of SharePoint Framework. It's a web stack industry standard tooling. Now, nothing wrong with Power Platform, but that is a proprietary development platform. It's not actually something you need to learn to use Power Platform. You cannot, if you're a web stack developer, you cannot, you need to learn something new. With web stack development, if you know React, you can, SPFX. So that's the advantage of that one. But again, nothing wrong with Power Platform at all. So definitely a valid option as well. SPFX is not a open source, and that's a good thing to remember. SPFX, SharePoint Framework, is not open source. That's fully 100% supported by Microsoft. So there is no confusion with the open source perspective. So.
But it is license free, right? That's also
It is also license free. That's actually a good point. There is no cost associated to it. Secured with Azure AD or Entra ID, whatever we call it nowadays. So definitely all good.
Yep. One of the top voted questions is for David Vessa and others. What is something you want the M365 community to do more? That's a good question. Let me give you our Swiss bank account number on where to deposit the funds.
We did get this recorded, so this is good. No, just obviously kidding.
That's right. For all watching.
I would always, so one thing what we always are looking into doing, and I every now and then we have a long queue, is community demos. So sharing your learning, sharing the stuff what you built. Again, it doesn't have to be open source. It doesn't have to be openly available in GitHub. It doesn't have to be anything like that, as long as it's not product demo. So you learned how to use Microsoft Copilot Studio. Schedule a demo with us. It would be really cool to have community members sharing their experiences on. I approached Power Platform and I learned how to use Power Apps, and this is my journey, and these are the assets which I learned, and this is the way I'm doing stuff. Awesome. That would be a great video and a great community call demo as well. So those are actually, for me, always the community call demos is the number one. We want those to happen because those stories, things what people are using is super important. Quite often Microsoft engineering and product PMs are like, wow, you're doing what? Well, I built this kind of a cool solution, and it comes to surprise in Microsoft. So
yeah, and I'll even add on there, like a lot of people will overthink it, and they'll come in and they'll say, well, my journey was the stereotypical journey. Like, it's been retold by everybody, but it's okay. Like, tell your version of it, show what you did to learn to create the app that you finished with. We had someone do that just a few weeks ago, and it was fantastic, right? It inspired others. I always call the community calls a crystal ball into what's now, what's new, and what's next, because you're able to see what people are currently doing with the technology. If things had just come out, what's new, how they're using it. And then because we have the Tuesday calls with the Microsoft speakers, you're kind of seeing what's next, right? And it can be hard. Like Vesa talked about being a recovering consultant, I am as well. You kind of get tunnel vision sometimes, whether you're a consultant or you're consulting just your internal departments. You might just be focusing on the deliverables that you need to fulfill. And it's hard to get that landscape awareness or perspective. So you're able to come to these calls, see how the rest of the world is, literally, because we are a global community, the rest of the world is using the technology and how they're putting it to work. And it opens up minds, and it increases the awareness of how you could use it as well. And it may spark an idea. And then I will say, one of the things that I would love to see more of is collaboration, like work with others. If you see a sample in the sample galleries and you're thinking, I know what, this could be a really cool new feature to that, create it or interact with the original developer of it. Work together and then present that together. One contribution is going to get you 3 or 4 different ways in which you can highlight that. And so if you submit a sample, we absolutely welcome you to demo it. Don't hesitate to get involved and ask for help. Do not worry about asking for help. Just do it. Everyone's here to help one another.
Yeah. And definitely, like I said, I think this community calls is probably the easiest way to, the chat is always incredibly active and get to know people, get to know those connections and asking help. And quite often what happens is like, let's take this offline. Let's schedule a 30-minute call and we'll figure it out together. So definitely welcome. So.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Let's see. We still have Casper? Yeah, Casper, there's a PNP search question there maybe that's worthwhile. PNP search web part is PFX. Will there be more excellent template or examples of display templates? Really love all the JSON samples.
Sure, I've got one in the backlog on my blog right now. I plan to release that next year. But if people got ideas what kind of templates they need, just let us know, because it's not rocket science, and you can make that as well. So,
and speaking of contributions, right? That
exactly.
That's an opportunity right there.
Yep, definitely an opportunity to contribute. So.
Let's see.
And coming back on related on actually just an example on the community calls and everything else. If you have questions around the PNP Search web part, did you know that Casper has an office hours related on PNP Search web parts, and he's basically helping people to set it up and to understand how it works. Great way of learning more how things are working. So awesome stuff.
Yep. Excellent. Speaking of contributions, there is a question here as well. Can you create an event for your local community? So I don't really know exactly the context of that. Absolutely, the answer is yes, right? Everyone is welcome to create an event. There's a lot of effort and work involved with it, but there is some support you can get. So some of the things we have are like community days, which I just put a link in the chat for those that are watching. If you go to aka.ms/community days.
Quickly open this one up.
Yep, so. Excellent. You can get it promoted there, and that helps. And with that, we will promote those events on the calls, on the community calls that we have here. So it's a great way to get exposure. So yeah, absolutely welcome that kind of thing.
And like David is saying, there is one way or some way of getting support from Microsoft related on organizing these events as well. But it all starts by creating an event and then using the communitydays.org website on promoting things. So coffee and code, that's good.
All right. Some some fun questions, I guess. Maybe anybody playing any games right now that they're excited about, right? It is that time of year, you're just spending time with family, Xbox or other consoles, maybe. You big gamers?
I'm literally building a Naomi cabinet. So
hey, what?
I'm putting together an arcade.
Cool.
Yeah. Probably for Capcom games, CVS2 and stuff like that, but yeah, going a bit old school, I think. But you know, Dreamcast, Naomi, it's where the Xbox came from, so you know, it's
true.
Still Microsoft related, tangentially.
Yeah,
kind of.
I'm almost done with King's Quest 1. If that anyone there?
Nice.
I just dated myself.
I do have my Xbox with me, behind of me. I don't have that much time to play, but I love Assassin's Creed games. I'm a big fan of Assassin's Creed from Assassin's Creed 1. And Mirage just came out, but I already played that through. So there's now the new Plus game option for that one, but you know, we'll see.
There's another good question that I think is open for everyone, and this might be a good opportunity for us to capture some stuff here. What is something you wish Microsoft M365 does more in the next year? So anybody want to come off and...
Well, what if we would actually ask that from the community?
That's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I mean.
Exactly.
Come off of mute and share what you wish.
Okay, I wish they would do less, because I just can't keep up. So much happening.
Less is more.
That's fair. That is fair. Now, related actually on that one, I cannot go too much detail, Bill, on where this is coming from, but there is certain level of a discussion for internal consolidations and, you know, trying to figure out how can we reduce the amount of changes, which is good. All of this business, everything moves in pendulum, and at some moment of a time, there's too many new things, like you Bill said, and people just cannot stay up to date. What is this new module in Viva? What is this thing? What did that do? I don't know. So having a more thoughtful communications and release schedules and all of that definitely helps. So rather than having competing communications across multiple or different features and all of that. So there is a certain level of a discussion in generally on that one, which is good.
Yeah, and definitely we don't want multiple ways of doing the same thing if we can avoid it, because that just gets so confusing for customers and for us.
Definitely. Good example, by the way, is the merger of Planner and Project. And Project Online. So that is a really good example. So
there must have been 10 ways of doing tasks and projects and project planning.
True. What else? Steve would like the old SharePoint admin screens to get updated, like SP search schema. Yeah, I do agree on that. Sean has hand up. I think we can go, Sean.
Yeah.
Hi, hello. I just wanted to keep piggybacking off the conversation. One thing I really am trying to do with the community is there was a comment about the lady trying to do the SPFX, and it's kind of hard. Like, we'll see all these cool community calls, and it'll be one snippet that we want to like use for the future. But how do we save that? You know, like I have to just put like a YouTube link somewhere and say, hey, this was like this number 3 module on this video was great. You know what I mean? How do we combine that back? So when we add Viva something later on, like, oh, I saw that 6 weeks ago, I didn't know it was important. How do I get back to that? True. So that's kind of the thing too, is we see all this cool stuff, but it doesn't click till like later on. So that's the one thing I'm trying to figure out. Like, do I just do it myself? You know, in my own little company, combine everything. That doesn't really help the rest of the community.
True.
So that's just something I would want.
If we would have some sort of a community wiki where we would be building notes and things more efficiently, that would be an interesting scenario. So that's actually really good feedback. So collective, you know, this wiki concept has existed for quite a few decades already. So to be able to collect notes as a shared group of people. So knowledge bases, definitely interesting. Good point. Now the community loop and all of that is kind of interesting as well. Technically, that's the basic idea, but I don't think loop has still some permission challenges, unless I'm completely mistaken, related on the external people contributing, and it gets complicated always. So we would need to figure out something. But really good feedback, Sean. Really good.
Yeah, I'll throw in also just kind of keeping a short list of those that I are active, or maybe cataloging some of that. So not to do some self promotion here, but a little self promotion on my screenshot summary website or blog posts that I take for each week. I actually do. I found myself going back and searching. I was like, I know something was about this, but I don't remember what community call it was. I remember someone did something, and so I'll go look for the topic because I do a text-based inclusion. So I've actually been able to use that to go find previous ones. But also the same thing, you can do it at YouTube. You can go in if you just kind of go to community.aka.ms/community/home, and you go into those YouTube playlists for the calls. You can do searches, and we do include all of the presenters, the topics, relevant links. So those are great ways to kind of maybe refresh yourself. Some case you're talking about a little bit of a OneNote, maybe it's a community OneNote or a wiki like what Fess is talking about, but it's a hard one to tackle globally, I think.
Yeah.
Is it in the description now? Because for a while there was no description for the YouTube videos. And I was
the community call ones.
View the first slide to see what it was actually even about.
Yeah.
So nowadays, all of the agendas are in the description. So the description, we hit actually 5,000 character limits in the descriptions quite often. So.
Okay. Yeah, I'd always watch like the first slide, see the agenda is like, oh, that's not the video. Move the next video, watch the agenda, and then that's how I was like trying to struggle to find stuff.
Yeah, it's all
good suggestion. Good suggestion from Kevin related on PMP. Again, this PMP word. What was the PMP again? But community bot powered by Azure OpenAI using transcripts, and that would be one way of actually doing that. So that is something which we might want to follow up on because we do get the transcripts and recordings from these calls, and we could actually put those in a bot, and we could expose that bot externally for people to take advantage. That would be really interesting, actually. Really cool.
I think what we need to do is we need to get an Alexa thing that can wake everybody up with the most recent. Alexa, tell me the recent updates on the community. Yeah, sure. Yeah. AI, Copilot, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt, you got your hand up. Matt Jones.
Oh, am I there? Can you hear me?
You are.
Yes.
So one thing I would like to see, and maybe I missed this, but I have yet to find an easy way to track app permissions across my entire tenant. Does that make sense? Like I have 47,000 sites, and I need to know which sites have been sites.selected either for the Graph API or for the SharePoint API. I know that app permissions page, is it going away? I think it's going away because they're doing away. Yeah. So, I can't even scour that page anymore. So
for
So
this is actually really good. So I know Bert is on the call. I can see his face over there. But definitely for permissions and grants and everything else, we actually do have new APIs. Bert, right? I'm trying to wake him up because he was doing something else on the side anyway. So we do have the new APIs for knowing the add-ins which have been installed and those permissions for add-ins.
And where they're
but that's for Azure ACS only, yeah.
Oh, that's Azure ACS only. But again, coming back on Matt's question, so that's the combination of Azure AD and add-ins and ACS. ACS is going to go away in 2.5 years, but that's 2.5 years. You need that information probably pretty fast. But we haven't actually documented those APIs, right?
They're documented. So they're available, but there's Azure ACS and there is Graph APIs to get find which site collections are granted access using sites selected. So I think you can get all information using APIs, but we don't have a easy tool or UI to show things together. There's third parties offering similar products that do this, but as Microsoft, we don't have it today. And that's indeed a bit of a bummer there, yeah.
So there's the Graph API way, but is there some, for sites not selected in Graph, but what about the SharePoint API?
That's the new APIs which were released in autumn, right, Bert?
Yeah, but again, it's focused on the Azure ACS side. So it will enable you to detect the Azure ACS principles and see which sites they're
that's what Matt is exactly referring to. Yes.
Yeah, so that one. Yeah. So but is ACS the same as the SharePoint API?
No. So we have there's three things. So we have classic SharePoint permissions. You have Azure ACS. These are both classic concepts. And then you have Azure AD or Entra ID based permissions. So there's three ways to if you in SharePoint have a SharePoint group and you grant that group access or break permissions and grant the group certain access. If you want to see those things, there's the classic SharePoint page that enables you to find who has access to what in the old page. But that's not complete. It doesn't show site selected, for example. That's outside of that page. So for that, you have to use the API. And Azure ACS is also not completely shown in the UI. So it's a bit of a... It's not so easy to get a full overview of everything.
Okay. I can't see chat, so I'm wondering where I go to get those endpoints to ping in Graph API to find that information.
Bert? Yeah, if you can put a link in a chat, I can quickly share that in a screen. I think we're running out of time. Clearly, there was already a message in the chat that we should do more often this. I think we got the same feedback last year when we were doing this.
Yeah, this is great.
These are really good. Yes. But next Thursday, we'll continue on this exactly the same model. So no demos, but clearly we need to start doing this throughout the year as well.
Yeah. Yes, we do. And we'll have another one next week. So I know there's some questions that are still left and some in the chat said they'd like to ask, but definitely come back next Thursday. This is going to be another open Q&A for the exact same format. So we look forward to that. So let's wrap it up, everyone. Again, thank you all for coming for this Q&A, open coffee and conversation opportunity with the community. One last reminder, we have our official Discord server set up. We have over 1,000 members of the community in here now, so definitely be active. Go in there. It's a nice one-stop shop to get involved in the variety of areas and topics around our community. We also would love to get feedback from you, so please don't hesitate. Even if you've already provided feedback, it continues to allow us to show our management that these calls are valuable and that you appreciate them so that we can continue to keep running them. All right. And the recording will be available within 24 hours. I saw some more questions there about the Power Platform call. That will be available here just shortly after the call. We will be publishing it. And this one will be available in 24 hours. If you are not a Microsoft employee, do not try to download it. It'll just end up in tears and sadness. But definitely do go to aka.ms/community/videos and subscribe to the YouTube accounts. You will be alerted as soon as we publish them for your viewing pleasure. The next M365 and Power Platform biweekly call will be next year. Holy cow, but that's only a couple weeks away, January 4th. And then, of course, our Viva Connection SharePoint Framework will be back next week. So don't hesitate to join us. We're going to have another format just like this with open Q&A, so plenty of opportunity to get involved. Other than that, enjoy the long weekend, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your week. Thank you all for being amazing.
Bye. Thanks, everybody, and have a great 2024.
Bye-bye.
TTFN.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Me. Bye-bye.
This is starting to get out of control.
Yeah, I'm like stopping
And
the
a little
recording.
creepy.